Hi guys, welcome to studyknits. This is podcast number 11. Hi guys, welcome back to studyknits. My name is Allie. If you're new here, I'm a fourth year medical student living in the US and I love knitting. Today's gonna be a podcast episode. I haven't filmed a podcast and I think it's been like a month, which is I think a good length. I have a good amount of things to talk about. This is my first post Christmas gift knitting podcast, so getting back into the swing of like normal non-Christmas knitting. I do have some gift knits though, like as always, I always have gift knits going on though. I'm in a new place. I'm in South Carolina for the month. I'm leaving in about a week though, so this will probably be the last video that I record here. I follow a just normal podcast structure with the finished objects, works in progress, and then acquisitions, and then at the end I talk about other non-knitting interests that I have. You'll have to bear with me. I'm getting over a bit of like a cold flu kind of thing. I feel like I sound better than I have other days, but I definitely don't sound like my normal self, so just bear with me. As always, I'll link down below the yarns and patterns that I mentioned, as well as putting them on the screen. I also use Ravelry a lot, and I keep a pretty good detail on my Ravelry of like how much yarn I use, what yarn I use, as well as any modifications that I made to patterns in the comments. So if you ever have any want to know anything more about things that I'm making, my Ravelry is linked below, and you can usually find all the information on Ravelry. If not, feel free to leave me a comment or DM me on Instagram or wherever. Yeah, so with that, we don't need any more preamble. Let's just get into it. I have 5 finished objects and only 1 whip, and then 2 acquisitions. So my first and second finished object is this chestnut sweater. This is a pattern by petiteknit. This is mine. It's my first and second because if you watched my last podcast, I was making my mom and I matching chestnut sweaters by petiteknit. So this is mine that I just finished this week. I finished my mom's a little before Christmas and gave it to her. We went to Paris together for New Year's Eve, and so my vision was we would have matching chestnut sweaters to wear in Paris together. Hers got finished on time, mine sadly did not, but it's okay, it is what it is. So my mom has her chestnut sweater that she was able to wear in Paris, and she loved it. She looks great in it. I knit both of them using Drops Flora in black and Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair. My mom's, the mohair was licorice, which is their black color, and mine is knit with Midnight, which is a really, really dark gray color. So this is the Drops Flora that I used. I'm hoping you can see that it's black. And then this is the mohair that I used for mine. My mom's mohair was just black. My mom has a bit darker features than me, so she likes wearing a lot of black clothes, and the black clothes look good on her. For me, they kind of tend to wash me out a bit, so I was going for a very, very dark gray and less of a heathered look. And I mean, it definitely looks heathered. You're gonna get a heathered look if you mix 2 different colored yarns together, but it's definitely less heathered, like on the lighter side of heathered, if that makes sense. I'm very, very happy with mine, with the way mine turned out. I don't know how heathered it looks on camera, but in person, not really that heathered. I really, really like it. Both of ours I knit in a size medium. I don't think you can see my laptop. I'm gonna put my laptop out to look at all my notes. Okay, yeah, both of them were knit in a size medium. I used 4mm needle for the body, 3.5 for the cuffs, and then 3mm for the turtleneck. My gauge, I'm trying really hard it's actually not even trying really hard. I'm just trying to measure my gauge after each project, like measure actually the gauge on the object. I feel like that's the best way to tell what your gauge is a whole garment. So my gauge for this one, I didn't measure my mom's, but I knit them like identical. So for mine, it was, 18.5 stitches, 28 rows, and that's in 10 centimeters. And for the pattern, 20 stitches on 28 rows. So I think that's pretty good. It's not too bad. So what is that? My gauge is a little bit bigger. My row gauge was a little bit wider. So in theory, if I were to make this again with the same yarns, I could go down a needle size. But I'm very happy with the fit. Very, very happy with this. For each of ours, I used just a little over 7 skeins of the Drops Flora for each of them. And then this is where it gets a little weird. I measured afterwards. Actually, I'm not sure because it was one of those projects, I don't know if this happens to you guys ever, but I bought all my yarn and then I kept I wouldn't keep the skeins together. Like I would have three of the mohair in one bag and 2 of the mohair in another bag. So what I went to measure, I think this is all I have left of the mohair for mine. I don't know how much I have left of the mohair for my mom's. All that to say, I'm just going to say I used around six skeins of the mohair for each of them, I think. But then I'm also wondering if there's a loose skein of mohair just lying around that I forgot about. This is incredibly oversized, incredibly aggressively drop shoulder. Let me show you this, okay? Can you see this? I hope you can see it. This is where the sleeve starts. It's the sleeves, I think I knit both of these sleeves. Well, I knit half of this sleeve, all of this sleeve in one day. The sleeves were nothing. Because it's so aggressively drop shoulder, most of the sleeve is just the body. The sleeve itself doesn't start until that's my elbow right there. Crazy. I'll include some B-roll of me wearing it if I haven't already, because I don't really want to stand up and try to figure out if you guys can see it or not. Incredibly drop shoulder, oversized. I knit the sleeves. I knit the stockinette on my sleeves about 2 centimeters shorter, and then knit the rib the same. Sitting normal, this is where the sleeves end up for me, which is, in my opinion, perfect. I think a little bit longer, and it would have been a bit too much. So I'm pretty happy with these. I don't love when I finish an object and I feel like I have to cuff the sleeves. For this wasn't what I was going for, so I'm happy that I made my sleeves shorter. My mom's sleeves were the normal length. This is a split hem. I always think in my head that I'm not a fan of split hem sweaters on myself. I've only had one before, and I liked it all right, but I was debating doing split hem or just doing a regular hem. So people on Ravelry have done just a regular hem, and I was considering doing that. My mom wanted the split hem though. I knit hers the split hem. When I finished hers, I tried it on myself to see how I would like it, and I really liked the split hem. And I thought, it's written to be split hem. I might as well make it split hem. And if I decide I want a regular hem, I can either redo it or I can just make myself another turtleneck. I love turtlenecks, and this is my first knitted sweater turtleneck for myself. I love turtlenecks. Why would I not see myself making more turtlenecks? So it's not that deep. It's not the end of the world. I decided to do the split hem. This is my first time actually wearing this. It literally just finished blocking last night. I'm a big fan. I think I'm gonna wear it out this weekend maybe. Something that I will not underestimate next time is how long it takes to knit the turtleneck of a turtleneck. I just simply did not realize that. Oh, my friend's home. All right, well, I'll see her in a bit when I finish recording. It took probably 2 business days to knit this thing, because it was also knit on 3mm needle, and it's just so much turtleneck. I'm used to doing a tiny little a crew neck, a little cuff, little 10 centimeters of ribbing, and then you fold it over. No, this was 30 centimeters, maybe not 30. It was a lot of centimeters of ribbing. So I was just oh, whatever, the collar won't take that long. Collar took so long. Oh my God. And then with both of them, I have not knit with black yarn or really, really dark yarn. I mean, I have, but it was just especially difficult to see. Doing increases, short rows, picking up stitches. It was so hard to see sometimes. I don't know I don't know how to describe this, but with mine, even though mine was a little bit lighter, it was a little harder to see sometimes because I feel like this mohair is like shimmery and shiny, if that makes sense. And so it was kind of like reflecting the light and making it really difficult to distinguish stitches. And I mean, I think this yarn is pretty matte. I don't know if I've described it well, if anyone will understand what I've said, but I feel like it was just really shimmery and hard to distinguish the stitches. More so on mine than my mom's, even though my mom's was just an all black turtleneck. Another thing, I already talked about gauge a little bit, but there was some weird, tension is just crazy, and it's just weird that it can change between projects. It's very fluid, it's dynamic, it's not static. My tension changes all the time. I'm sure all of our tensions change all the time. But despite knitting these using this exact same needles, exact same yarn, on my mom's, I ended up having to pick up for the sleeves 4 out of every 5 stitches to get the right number of stitches for the sleeve. For mine, it was 3 out of every 4 to get the right number for the sleeve, which means there was some sort of like gauge tension discrepancy between the two sweaters. Either that or I just knit more rounds or less rounds. I'm really not sure. Another thing that makes me think there were some discrepancies is when working the decreases for the sleeves. Petiteknit does a thing where it's work so many decreases at so many intervals, and then at the same time the stockinette portion needs to be like however many centimeters. On my mom's, I knit all the decreases. Once I was done with the decreases, I measured. It was perfect. The exact length that petiteknit wanted the sleeve to be, and I said, great, and I started the ribbing. On mine, I finished all the decreases, and then I had to knit if I knit the full length, I would have had to knit about 7 more centimeters. But I only knit 5 more centimeters and then started the ribbing on both sleeves. So there was definitely some tension discrepancies between the sweaters. They both turned out great. My mom loves hers, I love mine. That's all that matters. It's just interesting. It was interesting for me to think about, especially as I'm trying to be a little bit more mindful of my tension and my gauge just in general. That was interesting. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this. Really enjoyed this. When I picked out this pattern, my mom and I picked it out together. I had very specific specifications in mind of what I wanted for a turtleneck. I had a lot of things that I wanted. This fit the bill, and I'm really, really happy with this. Looking at it now, I don't know that I would make another one, mostly because I think there's just a ton of other turtleneck patterns out there that I would also be interested in trying. This is a great staple turtleneck pattern. But if I were to make another turtleneck, I think I would just try another pattern from another designer, maybe something with a little more flourish to it. But I absolutely love this. And the only reason I wouldn't make it again is because I think there's other turtleneck patterns out there that I would like to try. But really, this is just a very simple, no bells and whistles pattern, no like shoulder details, no nothing. This is incredibly simple and just an easy knit. Didn't really have to think too much about it. I think I finished my mom's and wove the ends in and blocked it, and as it was blocking, I cast on mine. So I really have just been working on a chestnut sweater nonstop for about 2-3 months now. So very happy to not have to think about the chestnut sweater again, but this was a really great pattern. I really enjoyed it. Okay, moving on. That's my only like garment finished object. The others are accessories, so hopefully they won't take as long. Sorry, I keep having like coughing fits that I'm gonna edit out, obviously, because you don't need to see that. But if I come back and my eyes are like really red, that's probably why. I love knitting, but I'm not getting that emotional about knitting. Oh yeah, next one I don't have with me because it was a gift. This is the Weekend headband by petiteknit. I knit this for my boyfriend, my sweet boyfriend, using Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in Coal, which is their black color. What size did I make? I made the size medium. Yeah, I used just under a skein, about 44 grams of the yarn. I initially, if you watch my winter knitting plans video, I initially planned to knit this holding it with a strand of Filcolana Arwetta to use up the Arwetta from Stash and to give it a little bit of a more interesting texture. However, I cast it on with the Arwetta and it was bulky. I didn't love it. Then separately I had an inspiration for a different like scrappy project with my Filcolana Arwetta. So when I realized I had a cute scrappy project I could use that for, I undid my work and I just decided to do just the heavy merino and not hold it with the Filcolana Arwetta just for the sake of using it up. And once I did that, it was a breeze to make. It took maybe like 5 or 6 hours. Like it took an afternoon and it was so easy to make and it was really fun. My boyfriend is a big runner. And so he requested a headband that he could wear while running or working out outside. And we picked this one out. There were a lot of ear warmers, a lot of the ones that like scrunch up or twist up in the front, which I think are cute, but they're not very masculine. They're not like his style. And this one just was really simple, very masculine looking, unisex. I'm a big fan. It took a bit of... So, preface, the reason it took me only like 6 hours an afternoon to make once I unraveled it is because I already did the trial and error of the Judy's Magic cast on when working with the Arwetta. You do the Judy's Magic cast on with like 2 needles, and then you have to make sure that you start working from the right side and it doesn't get twisted. So it took a lot of trial and error. A lot of Ravelry comments, like project comments, mention this. So I came in prepared with my guard up, ready to pay a lot of attention to this cast on. It was still difficult. I still struggled with it. But I think it gives a nice finish. I've made headbands before, like folded headbands where you sew it together or you bind it off together, not where you graft it together. And I think grafting it together from like a Judy's Magic cast on as opposed to a long tail cast on, like it just gives it so much of a neater result. It makes it much more stretchy. There's not as much of an obvious seam. I think from now on, if I'm doing a folded headband, like that's the way to go. I also appreciate how this, I don't want to give away, even though it's petiteknit. She has like so much money. It's not giving it away, it's in the description. You work bits of double knitting where the folds are of the headband, so it stays in place. It's not gonna like roll around and get all out of place. So even though it's just essentially it's a donut, I guess. Then you flatten. Even though it's like a donut, there's specific places where it folds and the headband will self-fold and it will stay in place itself without your help. So that made it, I think, a lot more... It makes it look more like fancy, a lot more sleek, professional looking, and makes it like worthwhile paying for a pattern instead of just someone like, okay, cast on, knit for 20 centimeters, now fold it together, congrats. Like, I didn't really need to pay $5 for that. This was a little bit more innovation, ingenuity, which I appreciate. So all in all, I like it. I'm very happy with it. My boyfriend, if he wants more, I'm more than happy to make him more of them. This is also great for if you have like, I do love a pattern that uses like less than a skein of yarn, because so often we all end up with just like, you know, like 50 grams of merino sitting around and you're like, well, what do I do with this? I can't. So this is a great project if you have some yarn just laying around and you want a headband. If he wants more headbands, more than happy to make them for him. I myself don't know that I'm a huge earwarmer headband person. I'm a little too vain. I really like the way my hair looks without a headband. or a hat or something. So it's more of like a necessity thing for me. I already have an ear warmer and a couple of hats. I don't know that I would make one for myself, but that's more just because I don't see myself wearing it out of personal preference and vanity. Next, I do have the rest of the finished objects with me. Next up are my penny gloves by petiteknit. I finished them. Oh my God. I just realized this entire podcast, it's just all petiteknit. I'm kind of embarrassed. It's literally all petiteknit, guys. I'm so sorry. Anyways, can't dwell. They're already cast off and they're already on the needles. Gotta talk about them. Happy with all of them. But these are my penny gloves by petiteknit. I was working on these in my last video, my little knit and chat. I made a pair of these like last year for one of my friends, and I really liked her, so I made myself some. Let me put them on for you. I can never tell. They just finished blocking, and I can never tell if they're like damp or cold. But my penny gloves, they're so cute. I really, really, really like these. I finished my friend's, and I tried hers on, like as you do, and I was like, oh, I need some. I want some. Let's see. I used Filcolana Arwetta in the color Nougat or Nougat Heather, I can't remember. And I held it with Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair and Plum Clay. These were both yarns in my stash left over from other projects. And so I'm really glad that I got to use some of them. I also I woke up one day and was like, oh my God, this is going to be a great color combo. This is the Nougat. It's brown. It's this cool toned-ish brown, neutral brown. And then Plum Clay is this really, this like grayish, brownish purple. Oh, I don't think I said, but I used a 3.5mm needle for the weekend headband. Now that I've said that, okay. Penny gloves. I used a 3mm needle for the whole thing. And the only really like change that I made is I made the like wrist portion a little bit shorter than what the pattern called for by a couple of centimeters. I think if I were to make these again for myself, like this is pretty long, I think I would go a little bit shorter too. Like I would start like here if I were to make these again for myself. But yeah, they fit great. I measured my gauge for these, and it was, I'm bringing this up because I'm really proud of it. It was 25 stitches, 36 rows on 10 centimeters. And do you want to know what the gauge for the penny gloves are? Or do you want to know? It's 25 stitches and 35 rows. So this is like perfect gauge. I don't know that I've ever come this close to matching gauge in my life. But yeah, I talked about it the last time I made these, but this yarn combo with this needle combo is like one of the most satisfying things ever. Yeah, I don't know that I would do a whole garment with these because it would take a very long time. But I'm so satisfying on the needles, satisfying it up, satisfying fabric. Love it. This is only a one size pattern, so I just knit the only size that they have. I think when I made these for my friend, I made a whole glove for her in about 3 hours. So in theory, these could take an afternoon. They did not take me an afternoon. I cast them on before Thanksgiving, and then I just finished them this week. So these took quite some time to knit. It was just a lot of casting them to the side. I didn't feel like I shouldn't feel like working on them for a bit because I was doing gift knits, and then for whatever reason just wasn't really speaking to me. And then this week I was like, I should finish these so I can have them and get them done. And super speedy to finish. I'm very happy with these. I will be making more of these. I think they're great for gifts. Oh yeah, how much yarn did I use? I used like 2/3 of a skein of each of these. So again, under a skein of each of these. So love the stash busting. I could see myself also. I think these would be cute, like a little two-toned penny glove. Like you work the I don't even know what, is this the body? is this the body? I don't know. You work the wrist portion in one color and then you work the rest of it in another color. I could see that being cute. You work the thumb in a different color. Doesn't really do it for me. But yeah, I think a two-toned pair would be cute for more stash busting. Love a stash buster. Love these. Last finished object, surprise, it's not even done blocking yet, but let me fold it up. You already know. I can't go a podcast without talking about Oslo hat. Oslo hat patterned by petiteknit. I knit this using Filcolana Arwetta in the color 726 or blue jean. Blue denim, something like that. I used a, 3.5 millimeter needle, I think. Yeah, 3.5 millimeter needle, yarn held double. I used about 2.5 skeins for this. I knit the size large. Nothing crazy. My 12th Oslo hat, if you can believe it. This will be a gift for I'm staying with two friends here. This is a gift for one of my friends that I'm staying with, and then my whip is a gift for my other friend that I'm staying with, which I'll talk about next. Not like a funny thing about this, but I cast this on when I was in Paris as my, I brought this with me, and then I brought my own chestnut sweater with me to knit on while I was in Paris. This is kind of what I had going around with me if I was knitting, but I brought it with me, and then I had some yarn issues. I don't know what happened when I wound up the yarn, because when I knit with it double, I cake it up like this so that I can pull from the inside yarn and the outside at the same time. I don't have to have two skeins with me and it gets tangled. I just pull from the same cake. But I had issues, and then it got all tangled, so I basically like cut up a whole skein and unraveled it. And it would be like it was this massive tangle, and I would get to a point. I got to a point where I didn't want to unravel it anymore, so I just started cutting it, and then I ended up with all these tiny little balls of yarn that I'll use for my Filcolana stash project. Yeah, I was very frustrated with the yarn in Paris, and then I just cut up a whole skein. I'm just gonna put this back. Okay, that's it for the finished objects. It's a lot of accessories, a lot of petite knit, and then moving on to my one. Ooh, so exciting! Moving on to my one work in progress. I'm halfway through a row. Why did I do that? This is not a knit and chat. Okay. This is my Eva cardigan by petiteknit. Surprise, more petiteknit. I'm knitting this using Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in, I think it's called blue jean as well. It is called blue jeans. It is a nice heathered blue. I picked out denim colored knits for my two friends that I'm staying with. They are very similar yarns. It was unintentional. I picked them out months apart and didn't even think about it until I was recording a podcast, or until I was like, they're both denim colored and they're both called blue jeans or denim or something like that. But I digress. I'm using a 4 millimeter needle for this, and I'm really enjoying it. If you watch my winter knitting plans, you know that I was having a pretty heavy debate about what cardigan to make. Kadri, actually just before I cast this on, so I did end up being a debate, Kadri released the Harlow cardigan V-neck, which I love the Harlow sweater V-neck. I knit it for myself, but then I felted it on accident, and so then I had to throw it away, which is tragic. It was one of my favorite things I'd ever made, and so she released the Harlow cardigan, and I was debating making that versus the Eva cardigan for my friend. The tester photos, they had some tester photos. Let me rewind. The Harlow cardigan calls for a strand of like maybe fingering and a strand of mohair. And I already had the yarn picked out, the heavy merino picked out for this. I didn't want to hold it with mohair. So my plan was to wait and see if anybody from the Harlow cardigan test had knit with just like a worsted weight yarn instead of holding two together. A couple of people did, and it was cute, and I liked it. However, I was then trying to decide, I was debating. It was, honestly, I spent probably a whole afternoon just clicking back and forth between the two patterns on Ravelry trying to decide. And somebody in my winter knitting plans video had pointed out, I said that I thought the Eva cardigan was a drop shoulder, and it turns out it was not. It's a contiguous construction, which intrigued me because I'd never done that before. I like the way it looks, and so I decided to go with the Eva cardigan. And just in addition, the Harlow cardigan was aggressively drop shoulder. The more I looked at it, they're very similar, but right, you can see that the shoulders drop down, and the Eva cardigan shoulders are, it's a bit more like, it's just not drop shoulder. So this is my first time doing a contiguous construction. I really enjoyed it. I do feel like the only thing, I feel like with there's a little bit of like puckering here at the shoulder. It'll stretch out a little bit with blocking, but I'm not going to go back and redo it. It's not that deep. Not that deep to me. I'm really enjoying this so far. The Dayquil hit different yesterday, and this is my progress keeper from yesterday. I just knit, this is like a lot of just body, like this is like 10 centimeters of just back and forth stockinette yesterday. I don't know what happened. So I need to knit a couple more centimeters in stockinette, and then I'll do the ribbing. I'm hoping to finish this. Again, me and the deadlines. I'm hoping to finish this soon. I'm leaving next week. Would love to give this to my friend that I'm staying with before I leave. If that doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'm not going to like stay up late at night knitting on this. I don't mind putting myself on a deadline and feeling pressure to do the deadline, but what I hate like staying up late at night, like trying to force myself to knit faster. I really don't like that feeling. I like the feeling of pressure, of feeling like I have a deadline, like working towards finishing an object for a certain thing. I don't like staying up late. I don't like forcing myself to knit. That's it. It makes it less fun. So, I'm taking it with me everywhere I go, knitting on it if I can. That's not forcing myself to knit. That's just like, if I have some free time, I'll knit. Staying up at night, being like, I gotta finish the body today. I hate that. So if I finish it, I finish it. If I don't, I don't. It is what it is. I'm overall just really enjoying working on this. I'll start, I'm using, this segues a little bit into my acquisitions, but I'm using some Chow metal needles to work with this. Over Christmas, I made the Dad's Sweater by Emily Curtis. I made it for my boyfriend's dad. I used the exact same yarn and needle combination. So I used Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino, and then the whole body was knit on 4mm needle. And I said either to myself or to the podcast, I can't remember, that if I were to knit with this yarn and needle combo again, I would do metal knitting needles, because I felt like it was just it was a really tight, dense fabric, and I felt like it was kind of fighting the wooden needles. Like I felt like it was like a yarn versus needle fight. The yarn was gonna win. Like I felt like my needles were gonna break at some points, and that's just not a good feeling. I felt like it was kind of hard to slip it on and off the needles. It wasn't the best knitting experience. So this has been delightful to knit on metal knitting needles. Absolutely delightful to knit. In my winter knitting plans video, I talked about how I have some more Knitting for Olive Merino in Dusty Artichoke. Ooh, everyone's favorite Dusty Artichoke. And I want to make myself a cardigan with it. Even though if I were to make this cardigan, I would make myself a medium. I'm going to try on my friends whenever I'm done. see how I feel about it, see if I want to make the Eva cardigan for myself or if I'm going to make the Harlow cardigan with that yarn for myself. That's just a future project, but I am thinking in mind as I'm knitting this I could make this for myself. I could decide to do something else for myself. So we'll see. I think that's all I want to say about this. When did I start this? I started this about 9 days ago, so this is like 9 days worth of progress, and I haven't been knitting monogamously on it. I finished this sweater, the gloves, and the hat all in that time. So this will be the only thing I work on for the next little bit. And then we'll see. Okay, so that transitions pretty nicely into my acquisitions. I have 2 acquisitions, but they're pretty exciting. I'm incredibly excited about both of them. I already started talking about one, but I bit the bullet and I bought the ChiaoGoo lace interchangeable knitting needles. I don't want them to slide out. Can you see? I'm so excited. I've had this Takumi Clover interchangeable wooden knitting needle set since I started knitting. I bought this in 2020. I got an Amazon gift card my first Christmas that I was knitting, and like a thick Amazon gift card, and I bought this set on Amazon with the gift card. I absolutely love this set. This has been a great set. Only one needle has broken out of all of these. I've used it for almost every single project. I absolutely love this set. However, last year I realized I think I'm a metal knitting needle girl. So I had a little bit of leftover money when I came back from Paris that I had intended to spend in Paris, and I didn't spend in Paris. I'd been saving for my vacation. I was like, oh, should I do it? I've been looking at this for about a year now. When I realized I was a metal knitting needle girly, I started looking into interchangeable sets, and then everyone talks about this one. I love ChiaoGoo. I've had my eye on this for a while. And the thing that pushed me over the edge is when I knew I was going to start knitting up this Eva cardigan or the Harlow cardigan. When I was going to start knitting with a lot of knitting for all of heavy merino, and I knew I wanted to get some metal knitting needles to knit with it. And so I was at the point where I was debating. I don't have any, 4mm metal knitting needles. So do I buy, like 3 sets of like fixed needles for this cardigan? Or do I just bite the bullet and buy the set? And I bought the set. I absolutely love it. These, unlike my Clover, I feel kind of bad like dragging it. It's been a really, really good knitting needle set, and it's gotten me through a lot, so I really don't want to hurt its feelings. But a big complaint that I have with them is that the tips do unscrew quite frequently while I'm knitting. And these, because there's like you can put the pin in there and you can like tighten them. These have not come undone once. I've not had to retighten them once since I started knitting with this. Yeah, I love it. And then you just can't beat a ChiaoGoo needle. I'm also excited to have the little line for lifelines. I haven't had to use it yet, but I know when I do, it's going to be great. So already like really happy with this purchase. I will say though, I do like I like the carrying case and the packaging better for this one. I like the way that you have like a little like pouch up here to store the cables in. And it's just a front pouch here. So I definitely like the design of this case a little bit better. But it doesn't really matter because I'm so happy with these. So that's acquisition number 1. And then very exciting acquisition number 2. This is a whole cone of yarn. It's a lot of yarn. So much yarn. This I bought in Paris from La Droguerie, which is a yarn store in Paris. They have a couple of locations in France and then a couple in Japan, I think. I really wanted to go to Little Weasel, which is the one that I've heard a lot about, but sadly they were closed the whole time that I was there. They took a little break and reopened like the week after I left. So at the recommendation of the great people of Instagram, I went to La Droguerie and I bought this yarn. It's called La Droguerie Surnaturel. This is the color, what color is it? Bleu marine. navy blue in French. I'm not joking, my poor mom, she was kind enough to come with me, and we spent probably an hour and a half in the yarn store. I believe this is 100% merino. I can't remember. But it was a pretty interesting layout for a yarn store. I've never been to a yarn store like that. You walk in and they basically have like an unwound hank of yarn. Is it a hank of yarn if it's just, they basically just had their yarn sort of hanging from little clothes racks with the labels and the color numbers and everything. But it was for display. So basically all the yarn was just out on display. They had swatches, sample garments you could look at. And then you would pick out your yarn and you would go to the back where it's all stored in cones like this. And then you tell them how much you want. And then they wind up exactly how much you want, which is nice because you could show up instead of having to buy only in 100-gram quantities. You show up and you're like, well, this pattern calls for like 37 grams of yarn. And then they just cake up 37 grams of yarn for you. I came in wanting something very specific. I wanted a very French blue color, like a very French blue, which I feel like I got. I really hope you can see the color well in the lighting. But it's a very nice, kind of a little purplish blue, purplish navy. It's not too dark. It's rich. I love it. So the color was one thing. I also would have settled for a cool, like blue tone red, if you know what I mean. Not like a warm, bright red, but like a red with some like bluish, purplish undertones to it. I would have settled for that. And then I really wanted a worsted or a DK because I wanted to make a sweater with it. I wanted a Paris sweater or a Paris cardigan. This was pretty much the only real like souvenir that I bought. I bought some tote bags too. I love tote bags, but pretty much it was this in tote bags, and magnets. I love magnets, and I need more I digress. You guys don't need to know about all my souvenirs that I bought. We're talking about yarn. But anyways, all this to say, I picked out a gorgeous yarn, fit all of those qualities, and they didn't have enough of it for a sweater quantity. And I was really sad. So then I went back and I really liked this one. However, it is fingering weight. It's pretty thin. This is it. It's so soft. It was my favorite yarn. When I just walked in and I was feeling all the yarns, it was my favorite, but I was like, I don't want a fingering. And so then I was like, well, I could hold a double. I was like, that's going to be a lot. That's going to be a lot of money. And my mom was like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll get it for you. And my mom had no idea how much like good yarn costs. And she was like, when I said, I was like, oh, I think it'll be around this much money. She was like, I'm so sorry. How much? And I was like, don't worry, I budgeted. Like, that's what I budgeted for. I wanted to spend like X amount of euros here. And I did. I stayed under budget. All that to say, I was like, I want about 700 grams of this yarn to hold double to make a sweater. And they had this cool deal where if you bought the whole cone without them having to wind it up, you got 10% off. So she was like, oh, well, let's just see how much all the cones are. And maybe we can do a cone and then you can buy the rest of one. This cone was 705 grams. And I said, perfect, I'll take it. Incredible. Odd shopping experience. My mom's French is great. My French is pretty good. My French is not, I feel like, good enough. I didn't feel comfortable in French going up and interrupting someone and asking for help. So my mommy had to do it for me. But my French was good enough to say yes, to understand her saying, the cone is at a discounted price and it is exactly how much you want. And I said, oui. Now, I know you're all wondering, what are you going to do with this? And I don't know. That's the scary thing right now, because if usually I'm the kind of person that buys yarn with a specific project in mind. I really, really don't like buying yarn with no project in mind. I find it just sits in the stash. And I get excited about, I'm very project oriented, and I get excited about a project, and then I buy yarn for the project, and that's how it gets done. But since this is sentimental yarn, I think this is a little bit different. This is not just me ordering willy-nilly from Wool Warehouse, and I want to find a really good project for this. So my plan is to swatch with this held double, swatch and block it and find a fabric that I like for the garment, and then match, like find a pattern that fits the gauge. Instead of finding a yarn to fit the pattern, I want to find a pattern to fit the yarn, if that makes sense. I've never done this before, so I'm quite excited, but I've also never really had yarn as sentimental as this before. So yeah, I absolutely love this yarn. It's very, she's very demure, like very space saving, very space conscious. This really takes up like not a ton of space, but I think I've talked a little bit too much about this yarn. With that being said, that's the end of the knitting. I am going to keep talking about just various non-knitting interests for a little bit, not too long. But if you're just here for the knitting and you want to head out, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Starting off strong, anybody else watching The Traders? I love The Traders. I love The Traders. I've been waiting for this season for so long. Really into it. I've gotten all my friends into it. My boyfriend's a little on it, and I don't really know what's wrong with him. But this season's not really doing it for me, but I do feel like usually I need to, it takes a couple episodes for me to get into it before once people start actually using their brains and getting into like the gameplay of it, I start enjoying it more. This season, getting there, really, really enjoying it so far. Who am I obsessed with? Dylan. I think we're all obsessed with Dylan. Gabby, I loved Gabby on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, and I knew I was going to love her on The Traders. I follow her on Instagram. I love her off of TV. I love her in the social media world. I love Gabby. She's doing great. Tom Sandoval, hilarious. Did I think I would be getting like positive entertainment value from, as opposed to like negative? Like usually I watch Tom Sandoval and I'm like, oh my God, I hate him. He's so annoying. But I'm watching it, I'm like, he's hilarious. He has like absolutely no idea what's going on. He thinks he's like so deep and serious, and he's just not, and it's hilarious. And then Boston Rob, my friend that I'm staying here with, is a big fan of Survivor. So when he showed up, she was like, oh my God, that's Boston Rob. And I was like, oh my God, who is that? And then I started getting like old TikToks of like old Boston Rob from Survivor. And I was like, oh, Boston Rob. And so now my friend and I are watching old seasons of Survivor with Boston Rob on them. And I'm really enjoying Survivor. I knew when I started liking The Traders that I was going to like Survivor. So now, since The Traders only come out every week, watching Survivor in the meantime, it's pretty good. And then I'm getting closer and closer to catching up on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I started season 4 over the weekend, and it's getting really good. Lisa Barlow is my favorite. And if you had told me that I would enjoy Mary Cosby's return to the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, I would have told you I was crazy. I would have been like, absolutely not. No way. No way would I enjoy her. But I'm actually enjoying it, mostly because I feel like people aren't arguing with her. They're not taking her as seriously. She'll insult them and she'll say whatever she wants to say, and they go, oh, Mary, you're so funny. They go, oh, Mary, I just love Mary, instead of getting their panties in a wad about it. So I'm getting more enjoyment. They're getting more enjoyment. Plus, I'm so sorry. It's just so nice to see somebody come in and just immediately humble Whitney. Like, she needs it. She needs it. That was speedy. That was a speedy, like, recap. I'm trying to keep my recaps. Honestly, you guys know me. I can talk. I can keep talking. But yeah, Traders, Survivor, Real Housewives. Severance. My friends that I'm staying with here are really into Severance. They watched the first season, never seen it. And they were like, I showed up and they were like, season 2 is going to start while you're here. We're going to watch it. Have you seen season 1? And I was like, no. And they were like, do you want to? And I was like, sure. Incredible. I'm also really glad that I only watched season 1 like a week before season 2 came out, because that wait must have been brutal. Very excited to keep watching that. A great piece of media. Very thoughtful. One really long Black Mirror episode with Ben Wyatt in it. So with that, I will say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Hope you're staying a little bit warm. It's really cold where I am here. So keep staying warm, keep knitting, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.